Assalamu alaikum and welcome to, you are listening to the Ramadan and Children's Health Program with me, your host, Dr. Kiran Rahim on Ramadan Radio, London 87.9 FM. And also at ramadanradio.org and streaming on Facebook. So welcome to all of you, wherever you are joining us. Please remember to call, text, WhatsApp with your feedback, questions, comments on 077 614 60614. That's 077 614 60614. There's a lot of sixes, so I hope you paid attention. So I will begin by introducing you myself. So assalamu alaikum to you all. My name is Kiran. I am a pediatric doctor and mother of two, currently living and working in London. I specialize in children and teenage health. And as it's the month of Ramadan, and we are nearing the end of the first 10 days, the 10 days of mercy, I thought it would be a good idea to share some tips on how you all can help children and teenagers cope in this month, because it is hard. It's hard for us adults, so it's even harder for the little ones. So the idea is that I'm going to share some advice on inshallah, how we can help both teenagers and children manage this special month Ramadan, and I hope to cover what they should really be eating, sleep hygiene, inshallah, teenage mental health, and I will end with a small message regarding smoking in this month, because I know a lot of Muslim youth engage in smoking and Shisha in this month a lot as a way to manage some of the stresses. Now, before I begin, just some important information I need to cover, and that is that anything I tell you today is intended to provide general advice and information. It is not designed to address specific circumstances of any particular individual, and it does not replace any independent professional medical advice you may have been given by your doctor or your child's doctor. Okay, so it's really important you remember that. If you have any questions or concerns about anything I say, please pop it into the chat on Facebook. You can text or WhatsApp us, and I have our chat open here, so I can respond to it there. So the first thing I wanted to cover is Ramadan and what to eat. Now, before we go into that, there are lots of things that we talk about, particularly with regards to fasting, and one of them is the benefits of fasting. Now, childhood obesity and weight problems are particularly growing in our current climate, and they're actually more apparent in a lot of Muslim ethnic communities, so especially in the South Asian and some African communities. So some of the benefits of fasting and why we encourage children and to fast, apart from the fact that it's been ordained by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is that it can help with weight loss, it can help with mental health and well-being, and it can also help us control those habits and addictions that we may have. That might be to fizzy drinks, to tea, to coffee, to those sugary things that we love. So a Ramadan is a really, really great way to reset your body and start focusing on nurturing your body as well as nurturing your spirit and your soul. So one of the commonest questions I get as a doctor is, what should children be eating? Now, it's also, remember, it's important that we encourage a healthy and balanced diet. Now, actually, there's no reason why children should be eating anything differently to what adults should be eating. A common misconception in our communities is that children need lots of high fat foods like fried stuff and lots of rice, and that they should be eating, all those samosas and pakoras and all of those things, because actually they're young and they can burn off those calories. But what's really, really important to remember is that whilst those things are really tasty, there is very little nutritional value in them. And it's really important that we nurture a growing child's body with all the right kinds of nutrients and all the right kinds of foods. So what that really means is that we should be aiming for a wide and varied diet. If you have any questions specific to diet, please remember you can always send them in and I'll be happy to answer them. So if any of you are watching, I would love to know what you think a varied diet means. So what do you eat for suhoor? What do you eat for iftar? And how does it make you feel? Because interestingly, when I speak to a lot of kids and teenagers in particular, although they may enjoy the fatty foods, they often feel really rubbish afterwards. And they feel lethargic. They sometimes get indigestion. It can also upset their stomach. So let's start from the morning meal. So in sahur, when we wake up, children should be having the same things that adults should be having. I am a big advocate for porridge. My kids have porridge. My husband and I have porridge for sahur, and I encourage it for all ages because it really keeps you full longer. It's wholesome, it's non-processed, and it really gives you a big dose of fiber as well, and it's a low GI food. So ideally in sahur we should be eating those kind of wholesome non-processed foods. We should be eating healthy fats, so things like avocados if you can, or some nut butter, so peanut butter on your toast maybe. You want to have like whole grain seeded bread as opposed to white. I call it cardboard bread because that's what it tastes like to me. And food should be plenty of fiber rich, and also you should be having protein. I think it's really important that children, when they're fasting, more so than adults, get a really good amount of protein in their diet, because it's protein that keeps us fuller for longer. And in the month of Ramadan, when our fasts are 16, 17 hours long, and children are more active than we are, the protein will keep them going a lot longer than if they don't have it. And remember, water and hydration is just as important in Ramadan as it is throughout the year, if not more important. I also think there is a lot of misconceptions about suhoor and how early one should eat it. And we encourage it to eat as late as possible, although you should follow whatever school of thought you think is more appropriate, but as close to the adhan as possible, especially if your kids are little. Now, I always encourage parents to give their children, so with porridge, you get that milk. They should be having some water. If you can get them to have a pot of yogurt in the morning, yogurt has good protein in it. It's got your good dairy in it. And it's a really great way to hydrate. So it's not just about water, because obviously water is very bloating. Now, also at suhoor, I encourage fluid-rich foods, and also at iftar. So this includes things like watermelon, vegetables, if you have like a light soup in the morning, or at iftar as well. And this can all help increase your fluid intake, because the one thing we don't want is dehydration. Now, I know I'm very conscious that I'm talking really fast and I'm covering lots of information. So just remember, you can always send us a question about anything I've said. So we've talked about suhoor, and now let's talk about iftar. I'm from a British Pakistani household, and when I was growing up, Ramadan, was around this time when I probably started fasting. And I don't remember what I used to eat, but I distinctly remember as the days got shorter, we used to have 2 meals. And the first meal was of, pakoras, samosas. We used to have chane and hebere, and it would be lovely. And then we'd have a main meal where we'd have like the rice, the protein-based stuff. And now that the days are longer, we can't really do that. We're only really having your 2 meals. That's suhoor and iftar. And it's really important that we, especially with children who are growing, so remember, they're not like you and I, they haven't had years of practice. Their bodies still require a lot of nutrients, and they still require the right kind of nutrients. So iftar for them should be a small date and a glass of milk, ideally not semi-skimmed or fully skimmed. I encourage full fat milk in the month of Ramadan because it's got healthy fats in it, and they're probably not going to get the calories that they need because of the 2 meals. So have your date, encourage them to have a glass of milk if they can, or water, then encourage them to pray. And it's really important that you give your body those 5-10 minutes of after breaking iftar to adjust to the amount of sugar that you've just taken in, and it stops you feeling lethargic. And then after they've eaten and they prayed their Maghrib Salah, give them a light, healthy, balanced meal. Now, the common misconception, as I said earlier, is that if you give children lots of fried food, you're giving them calories, but those are empty calories. They won't keep them full. they're not nutritious in value. So ideally keep off the fried food. And in our household, even now, we tend to only have fried food maybe once, maximum twice a week. And if we're having fried food, we make sure we have other things like chickpeas, which are our source of protein. We have lots of yogurt-based stuff, some soup to balance it out, because it can cause even children to feel very lethargic and very thirsty as well when they're fasting because of the high salt content. And then you also want to encourage water. Now, most kids I know don't have enough water, which also means that in the month of Ramadan, I often see in my clinics lots of constipation and lots of problems related to the bowel. So remember, fruit is a really good way. So pears, lots of Asian families will have like a fruit salad of some sort there. That's excellent. Some prune juice if you can get it. And water, water, water. Hydration is really, really key to keeping your gut happy in the month of Ramadan. Now, we talk about high fiber a lot. So fiber will also help you keep your gut happy. We should be having about 30 grams of fiber a day, which is hard even when you're not fasting. But when you're fasting, it's even more important. So you get your fiber from like your bran, your cereals. And, you know, if you're having like iftar, like for me, for example, I will often have like a light cereal after Tarawih just before bed, because that way I know I'm getting all of my fiber in, and then I'll have my sahur in the morning. And it's only a small portion because obviously you can't eat much. But fiber is also in things like grains and seeds, potato skins. So if you're making potato-based stuff, just wash the potatoes and leave the skin on. Try and eat as many vegetables as you can. And like I said, fruits like apricots, prunes, figs, they're all good for your gut. Please, please, please try and cut down on deep fried foods. It's really bad for your children. I know you think that the oil has got lots of calories, but they're empty calories. Just keep reminding yourself that. And if you're watching this and you're of the younger generation, then tell your parents, you know, tell them the importance of health and that our body is an imana to us and all of that, and encourage them to have healthier diets. And you can also be responsible for your parents' health, right? So try and keep them as active and as healthy as possible. And, you know, instead of frying stuff, try grilling it, baking it, steaming it. Fish is a really excellent source of protein. So try and have like fish once or twice a week, if possible. Most of us don't manage enough fish in a week. And remember to choose your fruit and veg over those pakoras and samosas. I know it's hard, guys. Honestly, I know how good they taste. And, you know, we're close to iftar now, and I know most of us are probably thinking, I would love for a samosa now. But no, you need to be disciplined. Think about your bodies and think about your children's body. And finally, I want to say that it's really, really important about the diet that we avoid sugary, fizzy and caffeinated drinks. Now, I see a lot of teenagers actually all year round, so not just in Ramadan. But it's interesting, when the Tarawih slot begins, you can see them plodding along the street with cans of I think it's Red Bull, I believe it's called Monster. So basically all these energy drinks that they have like at Tarawih to help them stay awake and all of that kind of stuff. But it's really important you try not to have those things. They're really, really high in caffeine, they're really high in sugar, and they're going to give you that high initially, but you're going to feel rubbish afterwards, and you're going to feel even more rubbish in your fast. So try and avoid them as much as you can. Now we're coming up halfway to the show. So far we've covered diet in children in the month of Ramadan. And for listeners who have just joined us, welcome to Radio Ramadan. You are listening to Children's Health Program in Ramadan with me, your host, Dr. Kiran. Please remember to join us on 87.9 or at ramadanradio.org, and we are also streaming on Facebook, where you can pop your questions or any comments that you may have. You can also call, text, WhatsApp with your feedback, questions on 077 614 60614. So pay attention, that's 077 614 60614. If you're dyslexic like me, that's quite hard to remember. Now let's crack on. So what else are we going to talk about? So we said we were going to talk about sleep. Now, why is sleep so important? Now, I bang on about sleep all the time, but I actually bang on about it for teenagers more than I do for children, because I think children usually have a good pattern of sleep. But let's cover why sleep is so, so important, particularly in the month of Ramadan, when I know when most of us aren't getting enough. So when you become a teenager and you're in those adolescence years, it's a really, really important period for your body, and particularly your brain. It undergoes significant developments, and it's, you know, getting ready for adulthood, and there are lots of important brain changes that affect our emotions as a teenager, our personality, how we interact with family and friends, and also how we perform at school. And lots of research shows that sleep is vital for people of any age, but particularly for teenagers. And I think in the month of Ramadan, we should all be particularly mindful about how much sleep our teenagers are getting. And in order for mental, physical, and emotional development, sleep is vital. So we know that research shows that children that don't get enough sleep, they have trouble concentrating, especially teenagers. It inhibits their creativity. It stops their emotional health, and it actually has a really negative impact on their mental well-being as well. And there are lots of studies to show that poor sleep and sleep deprivation in teenage years can increase the risk of mental health conditions, such as anxiety and depression, as well as other things. So it's really important that you keep an eye on how much sleep your teenagers are getting. Apart from the mental health outcomes, there are lots of physical changes that happen in teenagehood, and even in the month of Ramadan, we need to be mindful of them. So, you know, your body repairs, it grows, it nourishes itself in its sleep, and we know that teenage sleep is different to childhood sleep, and it's different to adult sleep. So there is a point in your teenage years where you actually sleep a lot later, and that's a normal biological process. So I know parents often have a go at their teenagers that, oh, it's 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night and you're still not asleep. But actually we know that's going to happen because that's what normally happens. So the hormone that's produced for sleep gets a bit later and later, and teenagers become night owls as their circadian rhythm develops. And then in the morning, they have that hormone that wakes them up, gets released a bit later. So that's why teenagers stay awake all night, it seems like, and sleep all day. But in the month of Ramadan, you've got lots of disturbances to your sleep. So Isha is really late, then you've got Taraweeh. By the time you come home, it might be 11, 12 o'clock, and then you're up again for suhoor. A few hours later, and we all know how hard it is to fall asleep after suhoor, and then essentially you're up again for school. So try and nap when you come home from school, and I would encourage all of you parents to create an environment of napping if you're at home with your children. So draw the curtains, get blackout linings in, and encourage them to have a 1 to 2 hour nap every day, you know, maybe between 5 and 7 o'clock, to help their body reset, and to remember to promote all of that healing and nurturing that happens in sleep. I think sleep is something that we don't pay enough attention to, but remember, there's lots of research that shows sleep is really, really important for children, but particularly for teenagers. Now, so we have now covered health and diet in Ramadan. We've covered the importance of sleep, and now I'm going to talk about mental health and mindfulness. So Ramadan is, for me, and when I see children in clinic, especially the older lot, I always remind them what a great opportunity it is to explore your mental health. Now, there are lots of examples from the Prophet, peace be upon him, from his seerah about how much he meditated, how mindful he was, and how spiritually connected he was. And I think it's a really great way as a family for you to explore that seerah and explore ways in which you can grow your spiritual development. Now, this is even more important this year. It's been a really, really tough year for so many of us, particularly the children, and many families have lost loved ones, aunts, uncles, grandparents, and you know, this has had a huge impact on our kids, and I can't stress that enough. as a doctor, I'm seeing lots of mental health in adults, but even in children, it's really on the rise. And I think it's really important as parents, as elders in the community, that we address these topics, which are often quite taboo in our communities with our kids. You know, spend 15-20 minutes in the evening talking about what's going on, identifying any issues your children might be having, talking to them about mental health, talking to them about mindfulness and how they can practice it, and how they can really connect in the month of Ramadan. It's really, really easy to feel very, very overwhelmed this month. Lots of people are doing lots of ibadah and worship, and, you know, they might be doing I don't know, 100 of something or 200, but try not to compare yourself. It's little and often. It's the quality of your ibadah, not the quantity of it, particularly in this month. So try and encourage that mindfulness, that taqwa, that spirituality in your children, more so this year than ever before. There are lots of really good mindfulness programs for Muslims online. You can Google them, but there are also really great charities like Mind and Inspired Mind that have excellent resources for children on how they can develop their spirituality and their mindfulness in this month. And you will see that once you start doing that, inshallah, it will really, really penetrate in all aspects of their life. This is a very very difficult time for kids, and I'm seeing lots of anxiety, especially now that things have opened up again. You know, children are anxious about how they're going to socialize with their friends, how they're going to go to school, and you know, how life is going to be. So it's really important as parents that we have these discussions, that we're open and honest about them, that we allow them to explore their feelings, and we discuss it in a really, really sensitive manner, and allow for that learning to come out for us and for them. And it helps if you share your journey, because I know as parents we are also anxious. We also have moments of doubt and worry, and it's, you know, it's normalizing that. It's normalizing that these feelings happen for everyone, and talking through them and working through it. Now we're coming up to the end of our show. So far I don't think we've had any questions, but if you do have any questions about anything I've said, please do pop it in the Facebook box, or you can text us, and inshallah I will cover them. So the final thing I wanted to cover in this show about children and Ramadan is smoking and Shisha. Now, this is a topic that is very, very close to my heart. I see a lot of Muslim children all year round that smoke and do shisha. Now, remember, Ramadan is a month where we choose to abstain from food and drink. And in doing so, we cultivate our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, in addition to food and drink, you know, we must also refrain from things like smoking. And I think Ramadan, because the fasts are so long, it's a really, really fantastic time for you to actively try and stop smoking and not doing shisha, because I know these things happen, and I know how addictive they can be. So if you are listening and you are someone that smokes, and it's not the amount of cigarettes you smoke that is necessarily the thing. I want you to pay attention to how quickly you smoke after your fast breaks. So if you are the kind of person that smokes, you know, you open your fast and then you have to have a smoke, or you do shisha shortly after, think about contacting your GP, or contacting the Smoke NHS Stop Smoking services, because this is a really, really, really great way of you to stop and, you know, improve your health. And I have to say this because as a mum, as a Muslim mum, and as a Muslim doctor, I know that smoking and shisha smoking is on the rise in this Muslim community. It's a growing health problem, and you know, it has long-term consequences for our body. And remember, the month of Ramadan is all about discipline. It's about disciplining and abstaining from food, from our nafs, from our desires, and smoking is part of that. And I talk about it because, you know, there's evidence that smoking and diseases related to smoking can cause almost 100,000 deaths in the UK every year. And I want you to think about how much that is. And it's not just death that you're worried about. It's things like lung cancer, it's things like problems with breathing, it's heart disease, it's diabetes. And you may think that, you know what, I'm 18, I'm 17, I'm 21. Those things are in the future. They don't concern me. But as a children's doctor, I can tell you quite categorically that we see children all the time with these things, some of them that have been smoking since they were 10, 11, 12. So as a parent and as a Muslim doctor, I really, really hope that you will consider giving it up. And if you are a parent listening, this is the prime opportunity for you to talk to your children about the health benefits of stopping smoking. It literally is the single best thing you can do for your health and for your heart health. I also want to talk about Shisha, because Shisha is something that's quite common in the Muslim community and has been very, very popular. And lots of people do Shisha as a way to not smoke. And there's quite a lot of myths around it, that, you know, you're inhaling purified smoke, or that it's not as dangerous. But actually, smoking Shisha is just as bad as smoking cigarettes, if not worse. And it's been associated with lots of really bad health outcomes, including things like lung problems and cancers. And because a single Shisha session can last, you know, somewhere between 1 to 2 hours, there's research that shows that you can inhale the same amount of smoke and harmful stuff in one Shisha session as you can from 100 cigarettes. So remember, one Shisha session is like smoking 100 cigarettes. And that's a lot, isn't it, when you think about how much it is? So remember, Ramadan is the perfect time for you to think about stopping these habits. It's the perfect time to cultivate your spirituality, of disciplining yourself. If you need help, get in touch with your doctor or your local services. So I am coming to a close now. We've only got a minute or two left. So remember, we talked about children and teenager health in the month of Ramadan. We talked about fasting and the importance of having a balanced diet in this month, the importance of sleep, particularly for teenagers, and sleep hygiene. So, you know, trying to get that nap in and trying to have good sleeping habits and making sure your body is allowed to repair. We also talked about the benefits of fasting, and we talked about the importance of mental health in the month of Ramadan, mindfulness, and how we can cultivate our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the importance of sitting as a family and discussing what's actually going on in our minds, what's going on in our lives, and how we can improve that for one another. And finally, we talked about smoking and how it is a growing problem in the Muslim community, and it's all of our jobs as elders in the community, as Muslims, as one ummah, to try and cultivate good habits for our children and our future generation. I will inshallah like to finish this talk. So Jazakallah khair for listening, and thank you for those of you that joined me, Dr. Kiran, on Ramadan Radio 87.9 FM. Till next time, please keep me and my family in your du'as. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala relieve us all from our difficulties. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.